Coolers are last year's technology. Well, last decade's technology. Tell me that you haven't gone camping or traveling or something like that and gotten a bag of ice and tried to like double ziplock your ice and stuff like that so that it didn't get your cheese soaking wet. One of the challenges with an off-grid cabin, or frankly off-grid living in general, is obviously power, right? Like, everybody knows that if you're going to live off-grid, you either have power or you don't. Well, if you don't, well, okay, you're you're living in the dark ages. But if you do, you're providing it yourself. I think that some of these small refrigerators could replace your cabin refrigerator. Now, let's talk first about power, because honestly, it's all about power. My cabin refrigerator can burn up about 1,300 watt hours in around a 33-hour period. But the refrigerator I'm going to show you today used less than 216 watt hours in that same period of time. Now, obviously, this refrigerator does have some drawbacks versus the one at my cabin. And that's something to consider. The one at the cabin is big. It's 4 feet tall, or maybe even taller, and about 2 feet wide and deep, and it's got quite a bit of room. Several shelves and the door you can put stuff in, and so, it can use 1,300 watt hours worth of power in 33 hours, not 216 or less, but I can put a lot of stuff in it. But if you're building a cabin for weekends and short trips, even a week-long trip, do you really need a refrigerator that big? If you live there, you may, but certainly not if you don't. And I would suggest that you take a look at the one I'm going to show you today. What I've got here is the SetPower PT45. That's a 45-liter, 47-quart, dual-zone refrigerator. And this refrigerator sips the power. Now, before I go on, the first thing I want to say is throw your coolers out. If you're still using a cooler, you are in the dark ages. Coolers are last year's technology. Well, last decade's technology. Seriously. Wet food, melting ice, stuff getting warm, food going bad, having to constantly buy ice, and the mess of all that water melting and trying to figure out how to prevent all that melting ice from getting all over your food. Tell me that you haven't gone camping or traveling or something like that and gotten a bag of ice and tried to like double ziplock your ice and stuff like that so that it didn't get your cheese soaking wet or anything else. And you certainly can't have ice cream or any other frozen stuff. If you like to have a bourbon in the evening, well, you're not having any ice if it's all melted. Or if it melted and the Ziploc you put it in got some of that juices from the ham slices you had that came open in your cooler while you were traveling. Somebody left it open a little too long and the ice all melted and everything's floating and it's wet. And then when you get home, have you thought about this? When you get home and you take your cooler into your house and you unload everything to put in your refrigerator, you got to dry it all off. That's so yesterday. Today you can buy refrigerators like the SetPower PT45, which currently is at a really good deal. This refrigerator will run itself for your weekend camping trip. In fact, I'm going to show you. This has a 216 watt hour power station that you can buy with the refrigerator. You don't have to pay for the power station. You can forget it, but quite frankly, I like having them. They're really nice. And this one here, we put this power station on this refrigerator. We loaded the refrigerator up with some stuff for a snow run that I was going on with my 4x4 club. And at 9:30ish at night, my buddy that we put this in the back of his Jeep because, well, I got some physical limitations and I'm not driving mine right now. But it sat overnight. 12 hours before we even got started. And then when we got together and headed out into the woods to do the snow wheeling run, I added more stuff to the refrigerator and he added his stuff. And we checked the battery on this and it was fine. Got out into the woods, got wheeling, pulled some snacks out, a few times, lunch. This thing was still running off of this 216 watt hour battery. The next day, it went 37 hours and it didn't use the entire power on this power station. A 216 watt hour power station. One that's also magnetic and sticks to the side of the refrigerator, which I love. So that's pretty cool. So, is it viable for your cabin? I think it is. If it's a small weekend type cabin, maybe something you're going to go to for maybe a week or something like that, 5 or 6 days on a hunting trip or something like that, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, at 47 quarts, you might think it doesn't hold very much, but I think that's because that's so yesterday, right? We were using coolers, and coolers are half taken up with the ice you put in them. So you had multiple coolers because two 50-quart coolers could only hold 50 quarts because they held 50 quarts of ice. So one 50-quart refrigerator, or 47 in this case, holds more than twice those in coolers, because you got to put ice in them, because if you don't, then your food goes bad, or it's like 60 degrees. These are refrigerators. And this one is a dual zone, meaning that, well, this side can be a freezer. That side can be a refrigerator, or reverse. Now, I will tell you that I had some big plans for testing this SetPower refrigerator out after the snow wheeling trip. In fact, I just got back from my cabin, and I was thinking this would be a great trip to use this little refrigerator for the guys. 5 of us went out to the cabin, and this is supposed to be able to handle enough food for 4 people for 6 days. So 5 guys for 2.5, 3 days, a weekend, leave Friday, come back Sunday. Absolutely can do it. Well, I didn't get the chance. And here's why. My mom, who lives about 25 miles from me, called me up and she said, my freezer quit. So I said, okay. And Darcy and I grabbed this SetPower 47-quart refrigerator and we raced over to Mom's house, cleaned out her freezer and put everything in this and turned this to its lowest setting. And her comment after a week of using this refrigerator to replace her freezer was, that little refrigerator made everything frozen solid. And it worked flawlessly for, I guess about almost a week and a half straight. Now, you might think that these are designed for those weekend camping trips, and so you don't really want to use this at your cabin if you're spending a lot of time there. Well, I got news for you. This is my third. I've thrown out my coolers. I don't need them. Coolers are silly. I hate wet everything. I have refrigerators now, and these work. You can go weeks at a time without any issue at all, and quite frankly, with the warranties on these, you don't have any worries. They've got good compressors, good components, and the most amazing thing is the insulative technology in these modern refrigerators like the SetPower PT45 are fantastic. They're amazing. All right, so the first thing I want to do is talk about the size of this thing. So 47 quarts, that's kind of funny, right? 47 quarts. Don't try to film something and stick the door in front of your face. So 47 quarts, how big is that? Well, despite my gimped up hand, we're going to try to find out. And the depth from the floor, so it's 1/8 of an inch under 16 inches deep. The opening is 10 and just over 1/2 inch wide by 11.5 inches wide. All right, so that compartment, 10.5 by 11, at least at the entrance anyway, about 16 inches deep. Let's open this one up and find out what we've got here. Well, one thing we've got is, and I'm going to talk about the cords too, because if you know me, you know the one thing I don't like is when manufacturers give you cords that are too short. All right, so here we are again. We are 11.5 inches deep, or long, or whatever you want to call it. 7.5 inches on this side by 9.25 inches deep. This is your second zone. Now, it doesn't have to be the freezer, but typically that's what you're going to use as your freezer. So dual zones. Now, if I turn this on, there we go, look at that. So these compartments do have LED lights in them. On the face, you've got your controls. So if we turn this on, it is on. Hit power. You just hold it, it comes on. And you have left and right zone controls, which you can then adjust those. I have it set at 50 just for fun, but I can set that down to, I think you go down to 0 degrees on this, so let's find out. There you go. So it can go down to 0 or up to 50. So if you're going camping and you want 36 degrees on your main side, then that you can set that. And then on the small side, if you want to make that into a deep freeze, maybe put some ice or some ice cream for the kids or whatever you want in there, Boom, you can change that to 0. So now you have both sides set. When this is set to max, it uses about 52 watts, I believe is what it is. That's your compressor speed. If you go to minimum, then it uses about 34. I'll put that up on the screen, what your wattage is in either of those. So your compressor speed also makes this very quiet. It is really quite quiet once it's cooled down. You've got a battery protection setting, high, medium, low. All that is where do you want this refrigerator to cut off? So if it's just plugged into your car and your car battery starts to die, it'll shut the refrigerator off to protect the car battery, and it should do that actually for even this guy here. I have not tested that. So that's really nice. Now, it does come with an AC 120 volt cable, and you can also get it with this power station. Now I'm going to set this up over here. I will open up this DC cord here because I want to show you this, folks. If you've watched any of my videos, you know one of my biggest pet peeves, hang on, is a short power cord for 12 volt. Folks, look at this. Even with my goofed up hand, you can tell that's a long cord. So you've got plenty of room. You could take this and put it anywhere else. Now, did you see that? It's magnetic. I love that. It can go anywhere. And also there's a bit of a rub mark here. Folks, I abused this during testing, just so you know. So pretty cool. I really like that magnetic feature on this. It's nice. You just put it out of the way. Folks, if you can hear that, that's actually really quiet. Now I can change this to max. Maybe it'll whir up a bit more. Just so you know, I'm not lying to you. Pretty quiet, huh? All right, so this guy here is a 216 watt hour lithium ion power pack. That's the PG 216 watt hour or 15,000 milliamp hours at 14.4 volts. Input 12 to 30 volts, 100 watt max. So if you've got a 100 watt solar panel, maybe one like I've got, 20 volts and like 5 amps, it should work just fine. If you've got, you might have to get an adapter for that connector, which is about the same size as a Jackery. I'm not sure if that's 8 millimeter. I'd have to check, but you could charge this power station up with one of those, so that's really nice, and you can charge it up while it's still keeping this running. But I will tell you, one of the keys with these refrigerators is that their insulation is really good. I really like these handles. Another refrigerator that I commented on did not have nice handles, and I said that they should have handles like this. I had not seen the SetPowers yet. I like these. These are strong, sturdy handles. I really like that. There's your plug, which is 12 volt or 24 volt. I also like these guys here. Now if we look at this, we've got a seal here. It does tell you what temperatures you should have things right there, which is kind of nice. Got some troubleshooting. Notice how bright that is, folks. Very bright. It's like slamming a car door. So folks, if you're throwing away your coolers, which I highly suggest is worthwhile doing because frankly they just take up space in the garage, and if you get one of these, you're not going to use them anymore. And here's why. If you get one of these for your cabin in the woods, whether you live there a lot of the year and you just don't need a very big refrigerator, though they do have bigger ones at setpower.com, so check them out. And there'll be a discount code down below as well, so don't forget to check that out. But if you've got one of these, there's something else you haven't thought of. Because right when I'm telling you to throw your coolers away, you're thinking, yeah, but how am I going to get my food to my cabin? Well, that's the beauty of these things. You fill this up, take it to your cabin, use it for the duration of the time you're there. Still got your food in it anyway, bring it home. I'm not going to call it a complaint, but the only thing that I would suggest to SetPower that I don't have with this refrigerator that I think that they should include with it is a basket that stops halfway down on the large side of this dual zone refrigerator. If they were to make a basket that had, little standoffs, something in there to stop the basket from going more than halfway down, then you could fill up the bottom of the refrigerator, put the basket in, and fill the top up. That's the only thing I would say they could do to improve this. It's a fantastic little refrigerator. I highly recommend it. Throw your coolers away, get a SetPower. This PT45 is an excellent size. So there you have it, folks. Check out SetPower.com, the PT45, or any of their others. There's a discount code down below as well. Awesome, awesome, awesome units. I think you'd really appreciate them. Meanwhile, I'll drop another video right here just for you. And by the way, thanks to all my members for your support. I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel out a lot. And I just tossed out some new video for you today too. Y'all have a great day. The old Jarhead out.